A question I've been spending a little more time with lately is if Linky Land is a place of opportunity and freedom, then why does it seem like so many people end up in jail? Right? Have you noticed that? Hey, I'm Tony, and this is In Linky Land, a podcast about the power of creating and connecting on LinkedIn. Today, I'm talking to Nick Raeburn and Doug Lawson, but let's talk about Linky Land Jail for a second, or Linky Jail. Last week, I'm recording this on the 18th of November. Sam Brown, who was on episode 1 of this podcast and has been a Linky friend of mine since January, since way back while I was still in the triple digits in terms of the number of people in my network. Sam actually had an experience where he was put in Linky Land jail, although I believe this time he actually was, the word banned was used, after what was termed suspicious activity on his account. And this is something that happens, it seems like, to a lot of people. The story with Sam, it was actually his 4th time having this happen, maybe 3rd. What was so goofy about this one is that Sam has been diving into how to do carousel posts recently, and he's gotten very good at them very quickly at a time where LinkedIn is doing that thing where they're really pushing one form of post. Last year it was polls, and then it looks like the selfie has gotten some bump, and now, well, I've noticed that videos aren't getting necessarily the impression bumps. Well, sometimes they do, though, actually. And that I think it's still true that my 2 or 3 top posts in terms of impressions are all videos from the last 2 months or so. So yeah, it seems like the platform has been pushing video, and now they're really pushing carousels. So Sam started doing stuff like, here's how you make a carousel, which is how I learned to make a carousel. That's a great post. I would recommend checking out. And then he just started going with it. And then last week he posted a carousel about Richard Vanderbloom. I think I got that right. I'll link to this post to both Sam's and Richard's report that Sam's post was about. But Richard is a guy who provides analytics and research on the state of social selling, specifically on LinkedIn. He's out of the Netherlands, smart dude, really useful content. And Sam made a post basically about what was in that report. And the post went to 1 million plus in less than 24 hours. It just went absolutely bonkers. Sam gained something like, I was about to say 10,000, and now it's like, wait, that can't be right. But I think that's actually what happened. That Sam went from about 16,000 followers to about 27 in the course of 2 days, which, I mean, it's truly crazy. But it's so crazy that LinkedIn flagged it as suspicious activity, and that makes sense. Well, there's something very goofy, and I'll say that to the best of my knowledge, Sam Brown is an above board fellow. No pods, no paid engagement, no tomfoolery like that. He's just a singular personality out here talking about things that a lot of people are interested in talking about, things like entrepreneurship and how to do LinkedIn better. Those are 2 of, I would say, that top 4 or 5 topics in general on this platform. So Sam found himself in the very peculiar position where he was punished by the platform for doing what the platform wanted him to do, just maybe better than the algorithm expected anyone to be able to do it. He ended up, I think it took between 48 and 72 hours for his account to get reinstated, which I believe happened now last Friday. And then actually it happened again, where then he was temporarily suspended on Monday, I want to say, of this week, after again there was a flurry of activity on his account. At which point Sam just started paying for LinkedIn, and he said that he thinks that that is the fix. That now that he is on a premium plan, that won't happen anymore. I don't know if that's true. I've never gone to Linky Jail, and I have been on premium. Specifically, I've been on Sales Navigator for most of this year. So but also I've never had the sort of problem that Sam would have had from that sort of influx of activity. And I bring this up. I mean, it's kind of a wild story, but the idea of Linky Jail is a problem, right? Whenever this happens to somebody, it's a reminder of why, if you're building an audience on a platform like LinkedIn, you need to be mindful of the fact that you don't actually own that audience, and that you can be removed at any time for cause or really without cause. And that's just the reality of it. So, and I say this as somebody who's been building an audience specifically on LinkedIn over the last year. And I I am at the at the mercy of the platform, right? I mean, at this point, I have not exported or diverted the folks in my community in large numbers, in a way that if LinkedIn was suddenly to say, we don't want you here anymore, I'm that attention, that like a lot of these relationships I've started building and growing over this year, they're just gone, right? I mean, there's no readily obvious way for me to even talk to specific people anymore, right? So, but that said, I at this moment where Twitter is in full on meltdown mode, and Facebook remains, well, I mean, it seems like it's heading toward irrelevance to a large degree as a social media platform, as people under 25 more or less stop using it entirely, and the company itself invests heavily in the metaverse. But one thing that I think lets LinkedIn be different than those in a way that leads to these really nourishing, rich conversations, to me, well, there are two things. Actually, I think we touch on it in this episode a little bit, but it's like the relative, I guess, lack isn't the word, lack of bots and anonymous accounts is huge. That when you are engaging with somebody on LinkedIn, you're pretty confident that you're actually talking to who you think you're talking to. Whereas, I've tried to get back into Twitter, and it's just, I have, after 5 messages from bots in a given day, it gets to be a lot. And just, there's only so much bot conversation I'm looking to have in a given day. And it is on LinkedIn a little bit, but they're not particularly good bots. And there aren't that many of them, in a way that you can very quickly just go to ignore, archive, block, disconnect. Anyway, so while the jail thing is a problem, I I would be remiss if I didn't note how much I value LinkedIn's erring on the side of caution when it comes to this stuff. It does seem like a challenging problem to solve, and LinkedIn seems to have come up with a pretty good solution. They do need to figure out how, I mean, there's no reason it should have taken 2 days for Sam to get back on after that happens. Like that, the trigger to get somebody suspended, um, that strikes me as maybe a good thing to just like make it hard to be bot like. But LinkedIn needs to do a better job of communicating like human beings when that happens, in a way that real people aren't getting punished the way that Sam and frankly a lot of other people have, including a lot of people who are relatively small in terms of their following. Like people who are at 1,000 or 2,000. I mean, that's common there as well. That if you're just like looking at too many profiles or sending a bunch of connection requests on a day, you may find yourself suspended, which is, it's just a little bit goofy. Um, I think that's enough on that. Let's get to this episode where today I am talking to a couple of the marketing leaders. Let's say leaders. I was going to say gurus, and then Doug intentionally goes after gurus on an almost daily basis. So, but he is one of the people I've been paying attention to as an example of how to do LinkedIn well from November of 2021 when I first started paying attention. Doug is a marketer and he runs his own agency, Doug Lawson Marketing. He's out of Chicago, and he was getting into TikTok then, and he was leaning into video then, and his attitude and messaging were so clear that he just popped off the page in a way that was genuinely compelling. That was like, I really want to know what this dude's got going on. As comes up, Doug is deaf, which is also, I think, an interesting component of his story, in that he does lean into video, and we touch a little bit on sort of some of the, frankly, challenges of him putting himself out there in video talking, given how his voice sounds. But it was something that I found, like I said, compelling. And to see somebody really standing up and owning what I refer to as their corner of the internet. Like, nobody can touch Doug on what he does. Nobody can touch him, and woe to you who might try. He has been one of my biggest teachers on this platform. Nick Raeburn out of the UK. He is a social seller. He's a member of the LinkedIn, what is it? Creator Accelerator program. I think I got that right. He also has he goes by the Social Nerd out on LinkedIn and runs his own agency called Story Scale. And I wanted to have these two gentlemen on to talk about the platform, let's say, from a wider angle. I wanted to talk to a couple guys who've been here for a while, been marketing for a while, and talk to them about the evolution of LinkedIn. It's one of these things, this podcast is about how much I love the platform and how much it's changed my life in this year since I sort of discovered what the thing was capable of. So I wanted to bring these two dudes in to get into, was it always like this and I just missed it, or did something flip at some point? And if so, what was that and when was that? Um, so we get into that. We talk about the opportunity now for leveraging LinkedIn. If you're running your own company, leading a team, or a member of a team, and then the future of where content creation and LinkedIn are going. Um, we rolled for almost an hour, but this was a conversation I could have kept going with no problem for a few hours. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks as always for being here. Nick, Doug, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I've had the two of you gentlemen on my radar from when I first had the idea for this podcast now, I think 5 months ago, and I was on a run and I had to stop. It was one of those ideas that was so compelling I had to just like do the thing right then and start jotting down episodes. And one of the ideas for an episode then was what LinkedIn was like in the before times, like there, and then where it's going.
It's appropriate, I think, that myself and Doug are both wearing black and white because it reminds me of Star Wars. Like when you said that, like what was it like before the good times, before the Empire, basically.
Exactly. Yes. And Nick, you are very clearly a Skywalker-esque character out here, always for good, whereas Doug is indeed Darth Vader. In the
I consider myself more Boba Fett than anything else. I'm alone in the galaxy hunting people like that. You find over here. So, that's my jam.
All right. Boba Fett meets Darth Vader. We can go with that. That's fine. But before we dive into the meat of why I wanted to talk to the two of you gentlemen on what is the first Linky Land episode to feature three bearded white men in their 40s. It's an exciting development for this podcast. Let's introduce you a little bit. So just where are you calling in from? And when it comes to what you're doing on LinkedIn, what is it you care about? Like why do you show up doing what you do there? Nick, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, so I'm based in the UK in a little seaside town called Eastbourne, which is right on the south coast. It gets a bad rap for being a blue rinse brigade area, but there are young-ish people that live here too, and I am one of those. As for what I do, the best way to sum it up is we attract companies with this shiny thing, which is every magpie organization in the world wants this, and that is more revenue, more pipeline, more growth, more inbound opportunities. They want to make more money, they want to grow. But what we're actually doing is this thing, secret. This is the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, and that is we're empowering people inside these organizations, giving them a voice, allowing them to express themselves through creativity, and giving them a shared sense of purpose. And by doing that, they make more of this. It's beautiful. That's what I do in a nutshell.
Doug?
I'm Doug. I'm from Chicago. I live in a town probably 15 minutes north of Chicago. I'm on LinkedIn to make a living, man. But what I actually saw is I hope companies and individuals like yourself try to get some traction with content, whether you're using LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube or a combination of all three or more. And my goal is to make sure you have a thriving business by the time we're done with our work together, whether that means ongoing coaching or I do some of the work for you. So either way, I consider my services like Goldilocks. So I'm not high ticket, high price. I'm not cheap. I'm Goldilocks for people who don't want to crank out 10 grand to get any traction. That's ridiculous in my opinion. But, so I try to be for the common people, I would say. So that's what gets me out of bed.
Right on. So yeah, the two of you are, well, you're both excellent creators. You have been for quite a while. You both are, I would say, on the forefront of how to use video effectively on LinkedIn. You're two who have been well ahead of the curve on that. And frankly, you're both people that I've looked to as I've tried to get more into video this year. And so I, given that you're you're basically both in the business of leveraging content to help people build businesses. This is what you do for a living, and you've been in the game for a little bit. I wanted to basically pick your brains about, as I mentioned, like,
This is what this is all about.
oh yeah, isn't that all podcasts are, right? Bringing people on as an opportunity to get free advice,
Yeah,
right? That's it, right? That's what podcasts are. Um, well, so I was a litigator for 12 years and ignored LinkedIn throughout that time. And it was only a year ago when I transitioned into business development that I had to start to learn how to use LinkedIn. And pretty quickly, once I did that, I got plugged into um, like sales LinkedIn, right? And then I touched on marketing and copywriting, and then my corner sort of became the transformational power of creativity, which Nick, I know is near and dear to your heart, and Doug, you as well. Um, and the platform opened up in this new and amazing way. And it seems a lot of people have that experience these days, where you discover the potential for this platform specifically to be not just a place for your digital resume, but a place to find clients, but then even have nourishing conversations, make friends who become friends in real life. Nick, I saw somewhere where you're describing your experience here as truly life changing. It's been that way for me as well. Seems like it has been for Doug.
That's what I was going to say, is that you touched on something there that I think the platform allows you and empowers you to fundamentally kind of, whether people realize they're doing it or not, but when you create content, it's almost like a subconscious form of journaling. You're getting a lot of stuff that's in you out, and people don't realize that they're doing it. I certainly did when I first started on the platform. And yeah, it becomes transformational. It allows you to change yourself and empower yourself, and there is magic in that, dude. It's powerful stuff, and that's why the journey that I've been on, that's what I want to empower and get people to do inside the organizations they work for. Discover who they are and give them a voice. Give people that are marginalized inside companies, or people that feel that they're disenfranchised, that can't necessarily speak up because of who they are. It gives them a platform and a voice, basically. And it's beautiful, dude. Beautiful.
I was just gonna say I agree with that. 12 years ago I started marketing services on Twitter, okay? And Twitter is definitely not a supportive community that not then and not now. Yes, you can find little rabbit holes that you can get into to find your own community, but it really scares people away from doing what Nick just talked about, which is coming out and fully expressing yourself, experimenting with your voice in a supportive network. Twitter would demolish you quickly. It just That's what Twitter's for. And I loved it at the time, but it wore me out towards the back end. And then if you get on YouTube and you try to experiment, people demolish you in the comments too. LinkedIn has this community component that you're not going to find on any other social media platform, namely because I think people don't realize that LinkedIn is an open platform, which means you can't be anonymous. You can't hide. You can't take pot shots at people and expect to keep your job 2 weeks down the line. Your job is on the profile. Your employer is on LinkedIn. They can track your comment that you made on other people just by clicking activity. So it forces people to be on their good behavior and really support your community. A lot of people hate it, but a lot of people love it for the reason next to that. So for me personally, I love it. It gives me a chance to what you want to talk about, create video, talking like that, and I should post screenshots of people just railing me in YouTube for my accent nonstop. It's like 10 or 15 comments. What the hell is this guy doing? What did he choke on? He sounds like a dying mosquito. That never happens on LinkedIn. I'm sorry. That just never happens. They might be thinking that, but they definitely don't say that. So LinkedIn is definitely a community-based platform.
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting you touched on that, Doug, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's the fact that it's revenue is what drives it. So there's a your bottom line will get affected, your brand gets affected. You know, there's employees on there, there's employers. People generally, when there's money involved, tend to be a bit nicer. And that's what makes the platform so attractive. And like if you've got a fear around posting or fear around social, you can't create content on LinkedIn, you ain't going to post on any other social media platform, because it is without a doubt the safest, most empowering, loveliest social platform there is compared to any other platform, because it's driven ultimately by revenue. So that's what, there's a strong sense of accountability there, and that's what makes it such a cool place to hang out.
Amen.
Interesting. I do see how that combination of identity, you know, that LinkedIn just doesn't have the same problem with bots and anonymous accounts that other platforms seem to, and then the revenue piece of it, the thing where the assumption is everybody's got a reason, a job or a hustle as to why they're engaging on LinkedIn. Those two things having a positive impact on the discourse. Nick, that thing you just mentioned about how you think of LinkedIn as the safest place to post, I want to dig into that a little bit. I think for me, I found it to be the opposite. That I find up until I discovered the platform in this new way, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter were all easier for me, in that when it came to LinkedIn, I felt like I needed to be quote unquote professional, right? Which is to say the idea of, and again, I'm coming from this legal profession mentality, where if I'm posting on LinkedIn, I need to fit in with that idea of what a buttoned up professional lawyer would say on the platform. And frankly, I don't really think like that. And I never had much interest, to be honest with you, in what I was doing. So I wasn't going to. Yeah.
I think there's a fear component in that. I wrote an article about that a while back, in that knowledge gaps create fear, and you're coming from a historically really conservative job, and being yourself. That there's people don't realize that the personal you and the business you are that, and they create personas, they create different narratives or stories around business you and around personal you. But when you meld those two things together, that's when the magic happens. And it's empowering seeing other people. I think just watching and seeing other people be more relatable, be more open, and be more honest on the platform empowers you and gives you the opportunity to do that as well. I think, yeah, when you first start on it, you're like, how should I I think I came from a very I've always worked in the creative industry and in video, but the company I used to work for was very blue chip, very corporate. So when I had the opportunity to kind of go out on my own and get on the platform, I was like a dog off a leash. I was just like, let's just go crazy, because I felt like I'd been kind of held back. So in a way, it was exhilarating, just being able to kind of experiment and do whatever I wanted with my content, which was quite empowering. But I think there is that tendency. I think when you come from a more, I guess people that kind of work in agencies or come from creative backgrounds probably find it easier to translate to the platform and be more themselves than someone would that would come from a more historical, like the banking sector or being a lawyer or something like that. I guess it's probably more difficult. I don't know. I'm making assumptions there, but
No, that makes sense. I want to hear from the two of you gentlemen. When you started on LinkedIn, like when you joined, when you started creating content, and your take on that environment you're describing, Nick. One thing I'm still not is, has that always existed on LinkedIn and I just didn't see it until late 2021? Or did something flip at some point and all of a sudden people started using LinkedIn, which has been around since 2004, in a new way? Doug, you have thought?
I was going to piggyback up next year, which will help finish this question. It helps people who come from high corporate, legal, finance to go into LinkedIn thinking, okay, this is a conference, right? This is the big industry conference going on. There's people with the table, right? And they're throwing business cards at you. And there's people in the outside of those tables talking, gossiping to each other. The real deal are happening at the bar across the street from the conference. They're having the most fun. They're making the best deal. They're making the best connection. Everybody's in the comfort. Nick and I are in the bar across the street having a pint, having a laugh, helping people, giving free advice, so on and so forth. So it helps if you come from that background to think about it. The best way to make networks happen isn't on the conference floor. It's getting across the street to that bar. So LinkedIn, historically for me, so I've been on here 3.5 years full time. But I've always checked in and out. 4 years ago, LinkedIn was only a conference. It was tables set up. People were throwing flyers at you. If they had a job, they would, hey, I have a job. Hey, buy that. It wasn't until a year before the pandemic, Facebook people started migrating over because Facebook got extremely saturated. That's where Shay Rowbottom comes in. Whether you love her or hate her, she is a lightning rod for that kind of change that was happening, where she brought Facebook videos. Which the way she does videos is very common on Facebook. It's uncommon on LinkedIn. And when she starts talking about her depression and all these traumas she's had, that was like, whoa, we don't talk about that here. I'm not saying she's the only one, but she was a year before the pandemic leading that revolution. And the right behind her were people like Chris Walker or Leah Turner, sort of talking in ways that you don't normally talk. Again, I'm not saying they are solely responsible. From my vantage point, 3.5 years ago, they were doing things that were quite common on other platforms, but uncommon on LinkedIn. And the pandemic hit, which is what I think personally should transform LinkedIn from a business platform into a full-blown social media / business / networking platform. But it was never like that 4 years ago.
No. Yeah, you've got this, I think you've got this dichotomy on LinkedIn with what it used to be, which is this very blue chip corporate, CV networking site, and now it's a full-blown, grown-up, full-fat social media platform with creators on it, and it's kind of doing this a little bit. And those two things are gonna meld in the end. But, I had a similar kind of. I think I started around kind of 2019, and then obviously COVID hit. I always say that COVID was the point at which digital picked up every single organization in the world and smashed its head against the wall repeatedly. And some companies went, "Ooh, that felt funny. Let's just carry on doing what we've always done." And some companies went, "We never ever want that to happen ever again. How do we get in front of and speak to our customers when we can't go to networking events?" anymore, and we can't be in the real world anymore through social. So yeah, it was a wake up call for a lot of organizations, but some just went back to doing what they've always done. But digital is here, whether you like it or not, is here, and COVID was it. So that was my watermark.
Well, Nick, in something I was watching you talk on, a video, I believe they're called. You mentioned your belief, a belief I share, that we're still at the front end of this very fundamental shift in business. And the book I published a few months ago gets into this in great detail, but I want to hear you riff on that for a little bit. What is the nature of that shift? What are we looking at?
Yeah, we're looking at a change in. I genuinely believe over the next decade that employees will have the power over brands. So if you take the time to invest in your personal brand, and you've got a follower base of 100,000, 200,000 people that will walk over broken glass to listen to what you have to say, that is enormous bargaining power when you go to an employer. You can pretty much dictate your salary because you are bringing an army of super fans with you. We always use the analogy with Nike. So Nike's got something like 10 million Twitter followers. Serena Williams has got 10.5 million. LeBron James has got 55 million. Ronaldo's got 150 odd million. So that brand, although it's a worldwide, very famous brand, the people that it employs to sell that brand inside that organization have got massive reach compared to that brand. So we know that I always use this. I'm going to piss off a lot of people that work in sales and marketing, but I believe those two terms, sales and marketing, are legacy terminology. There's not a thing that creates demand anymore, if it ever did, and hands it off to this department, which closes it. Those two things are now this. And the old mechanisms of, I believe that we need new terminology around this, because you look at traditional marketing, it has to go through corporate vetting. There's huge budgets involved in it. It has to go through legal and sign off. Enabling and trusting your employees to post their own content you will literally swamp your competition by doing this, compared to the old outdated. It's a bit like driving around in a horse and cart, and then suddenly a UFO has just landed in the parking lot. The UFO is social and personal brand, and sales and marketing is this horse and cart. It's like you're just not going to compete with it. It's from another planet. It's as simple as that.
Well, and when you're talking about this idea of employees, sort of the tail wagging the dog, right? That employees and individual contributors, personal brands, can outpunch the corporate messaging, which is most definitely the case on LinkedIn. Do you see what's that?
It's more nimble. It's more agile. So it can't move at the pace that the trouble is with, and that's the beautiful thing about creativity, is that creativity is so quick, and compared to you build this kind of corporate monolith, and it's based on systems and processes, and those things are slow compared to how, if a creator comes up with an idea, it's like, boom, now I can create this idea. I've got real-time feedback from my audience. I can iterate on it. I'm not tied up and constrained by all these things that a company surrounds itself in order to be efficient. It's yeah.
Well, do you see the potential of employees kind of pushing the brand, extending to basically anybody in the company? Or when you think about this, are you thinking about those traditional sales and marketing people?
Yes. So more of a cross section of people you get inside that organization. So people working in HR, sales, marketing, C-suite, in particular, technical people as well. Nerds talking to other nerds is a beautiful thing. So a nerd talking to another nerd in the same language with their content is amazing. But there's a collateral gap that marketing has, that it can't keep up with it. I always think of it like an octopus. So the more diverse your people are inside your organization and the more different departments you have on social, think of that octopus as having more and more and more arms. It's more and more opportunities to start a conversation. The brand is the head, but the people are the tentacles. So the more the more tentacles there are, the more you're going to grasp stuff, and the more you're going to do it, the more quickly you're going to do it compared to traditional sales and marketing routes. That was a good analogy, I think.
My silence is me taking a note. That's on that. That's a great analogy. Doug, do you have a thought on that? You want me to keep rolling?
Well, I just wrote a post the other day about, because somebody was challenging me that, well, you can't do that with employees, and I was like, you can, and here's how. Basically, what Nick is saying, I don't work for corporates. I don't think corporates like me. I work with mostly smaller startups who probably won the first round of capital, who don't have this $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 marketing budget. Well, you already have a marketing team on your team. Everybody in your office is on your team. And the first gut reaction, just because that's how they grew up, they start to, okay, everybody that. And then I come in and I'm like, no, we are not following the party line. Let's figure out what the brand is first. What is it? Similar to Nike analogy. Nike creates a shoe. Nike got Serena, Ronaldo, and Raeburn do what they need to do. The only thing they need to do is wear the shoes. We'll take care of the rest. We'll make sure you have a platform. And they bring the reach to Nike by being Raeburn, Ronaldo, Serena. Likewise, for your small startup, you don't want to hire this New York agency or Toronto-based agency or London-based agency. Work within your team and let them be creative and pull people in with their own algorithm, because 4 is better than 1. 4 algorithms is better than 1 algorithm constantly working. So, and the key thing here, identify 2 to 3 things each of them do quite well at what they're passionate about. What value do they have to share to the market? And let them grow independently on LinkedIn. But have your company page set up to show up the company in a great way. Have the profile be clear about who you work with, but the profile can't be corporate either. The profile still needs to be unique to that person, but they just happen to work at Nike, so to speak. You will get inbound. I've seen it with different startups leveraging other people's algorithms to bring in traffic for people to talk to. So it works at the corporate level, and it works at the small startup. It works at the individual level. In fact, one of my clients uses his wife. So it's a small solo operation, but he got his wife to start posting on LinkedIn to help bring a little bit more leads into that. Again, 2 algorithms is better than 1. So, and again, she was allowed to say whatever she wanted to say. And she talked mostly about raising children, cooking, and going running. He's not a runner, but 2 separate messages are still bringing in the same type of traffic that they both want. So I think, letting your people talk is a hack.
And there's a huge, massive trust component that's built into that. Some companies are so,
yeah, because they have guys the message. Oh, we got to stay on message.
We've got, and it's like, well, you allow those people to close deals. You allow those people to talk to your customers. You allow those people to drive your delivery vans or whatever it is you do, but you won't allow them to post on social. That tells me straight away. That silence tells me more about your company culture than you can possibly imagine, because you won't allow them. That tells me straight away that your company culture is toxic, because you won't allow them to post on social. By empowering those people and giving them a voice, you're doing, and this is why it annoys me when people refer to social media just as sales and marketing. When you're talking about how amazing your company is to work for from an advocacy standpoint, people start throwing their CVs at you. That's not sales and marketing. That goes a lot deeper than that. That builds a much bigger 3-dimensional map of what your company's like to work for, and what your value sets are, and who the people are that work inside that organization. So it will almost, I feel like we're in the midst of a renaissance with this stuff. In the creativity, it's like finally, like the creative guys always been stamped on through history, and it's like finally we're getting our chance to shine here. And inside those organizations, you're empowering and allowing those people to be themselves, and that ultimately it's driving revenue for that company. But it's the companies that won't allow their staff to post on social. I've seen it happen with clients that we work with. Clients that we're working with are moving forward in social, and their competitors are preventing their staff from posting on social, which means they're actually going backwards. And we've created an environment where ultimately the good guys win. If you've got a safe, beautiful, lovely company culture, and you trust your staff to post on social, you are gonna dump all over your competition, and that is the way it should be. That's how it should be.
That's well said. And my experience over the last year has definitely reflected what you're both describing there, where I was taking a business development role for this little consulting agency that works with nonprofits. It grew out of St. Louis, remote team. It's called Mission Matters Group, 10 team members. My CEO, who's also a friend, Josh Aranda, told me, like, you need to learn how to do LinkedIn. Because for the first time, this company wasn't just going to be referral based. They were going to try to bring in new humans and new companies to work with, right? And he said, do whatever you need to do that. And I picked creativity as my lane on LinkedIn because I did Justin Welsh's operating system, and it was like, what can you talk about all day long and that sort of thing. And I've been studying creativity for 7 years now. And so I started doing that, and it opened up the platform in this new way. I gained traction as a creator. Basically, once I started posting daily in January. And what we've seen as an organization, I've then been able, like what Doug would say, 2 algorithms is better than 1. I've been able to help our leadership team gain traction. We've done some experiments as a company that they've lifted the brand awareness for MMG in a way that, and I mean, I remain amazed at how it's happened. And I wish I could say it was by design, but it wasn't. But that company has punched so far above its weight class this year, simply by virtue of the leadership team empowering its team members. And so 5 of us took them up on it in a way that we've done some really amazing things.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. Did you ever used to play? There was a Nintendo boxing game where you were like a little dude, and you'd have these like massive fighters that came in. It's yes. Like you've got a small team of 10, 20, 30 people can be much more nimble and agile than even a massive gargantuan beast can. They can overtake a large competitor by trusting and letting their team do that. And that is like the little guy can win by doing this, and that is because they're trusted. And that is, it's so
cool.
It is epic.
I believe you were referring to Mike Tyson's Punch Out, just to be clear. We need to make sure we're putting, and we'll put that in the show notes for people who are looking for 1986 video games to play.
I love that game. It made me have blisters on my thumb. Yeah.
We're dating ourselves for sure. So listening to you, and obviously we're all in lockstep on the power here. I'm interested to know what companies you look to as examples of how to do this well on LinkedIn. Because frankly, I've started this, I've fallen ass backward into starting this agency that's focused on helping law firms leverage LinkedIn. And I'm looking at, I come from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm like poking around the industry there. That's where I'm starting to build. And I think quite literally, by myself, I'm outperforming. I have more reach than the biggest personal injury firm in St. Louis that has like 60 attorneys. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. I think I went through and I looked at everybody and what they're doing on LinkedIn. I was like, oh my God, more people have seen my stupid face than every single person at this huge law firm combined, which obviously creates a tremendous opportunity, right? But so all that to say, who out in Linky Land is doing it right?
I think.
Well, I think you're still doing it right. I mean, if you take your analogy, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in America, particularly out in the suburbs, probably in the city too, you're a lawyer. One of the most common ways lawyers promote themselves, they take out a giant billboard on some road, and they got, and they think that's going to convert massive amounts of traffic. Tony will outperform any pearly white teeth lawyer on a billboard or a bus stop bench. By far, with that type of network he had. Sorry for interrupting, but it made me think most lawyers in America use the billboard or the bus bench, or they'll try to get in a magazine or something like that. And I've always thought, what a waste of money, But so Tony's on the forefront for lawyers. I've never seen it done for lawyers. They're very traditional in the way they market. I mean, there's no marketing course in law school that will help you get more clients. So that's that. Sorry for taking the conversation up. Go ahead, Nick. What were you going to say?
Absolutely cool, dude. I was going to say with Tony's beard game, I'm sure it would be absolutely fine if he was on a big billboard with his beard and his beanie on. He would, he'd sell like hotcakes. But yeah, you're right. It's indicative, I think, that one. You look at the state of advertising. I'm talking to companies that sell advertising for a living, and they're talking to me about social selling. That is indicative of like, well, surely to get in front of customers, you just need to advertise. and the other thing is the fact that I have to pay YouTube to stop advertising to me tells you an awful lot about the state of advertising. We are that era of patent interruption and I'm going to bombard you with stuff until I break you and you buy it is over. It's we're comfortable building micro communities and we want to hang out with the people that we know, like and trust, and that's where influencer marketing has come to the forefront. But yeah, we are, what were you going to say, Tony?
I was going to say, go back to a question I posed a few minutes ago. Who is doing it right out there? Because like I think of like, go ahead.
So two spring to mind. So one is Stephen Bartlett and Social Chain. To me, he's a UK guy, but their company was built around social. And the other one is probably Gymshark. But again, their company was founded.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but by a founder that understood the influencer space and rode that wave of the influencer space. So they're two companies that I can think off the top of my head that are doing this really, really well. But again, they're two young companies, and you look at the growth of those companies, and they are astronomical. I mean, Gymshark is insane how much money that company turns up, and how large their growth has been over the past decade. And I think you're starting to see this kind of, you look at myself and all of us here at Gen X, as you look at our generations older than us, we were the first generation to grow up with the internet, to see that, the kind of rise of personal computing, and then we saw the birth of the internet. But my kid, for example, she's 11, she's grown up with YouTube. She's a digital native. She all of her stuff she finds online, and this kind of old guard mentality of like, we who still don't quite understand what the concept of the internet is, that generation will die off soon. And you've got younger Gen Zs coming into the marketplace who the only way they communicate is through social, is through TikTok. They search on TikTok, they message on WhatsApp, they message on
Snapchat.
Yeah. So that they are digital natives. They understand this environment, and if you're not talking to them on these platforms, you don't exist. You're not there, as far as they're concerned. So how are you gonna, if you're not there, if you're not visible, how are you going to attract and retain that talent if they don't even know you exist?
Piggybacking off that real quick, just real quick, my kids, 13 and 11, have never seen a TV ad. Think about that. So every shoe they've ever bought, every T-shirt they've ever bought, every food they've ever bought has come from YouTube, TikTok, or some variation of WhatsApp messaging, Discord. So, in fact, I forget where we were. The hotel. We were watching TV. The TV ad coming out. What's going on? I'm like, what is that? You know, I'm like, this is not Netflix, but you know. So yeah, this generation is demolishing traditional marketing. You have to get on social side. You have to be on these platforms. Using brand awareness and influencer marketing a little bit. But yeah, our kids haven't bought anything from traditional media. That is my experience. Well, where did you find these shoes? Oh, I'm following this dude on TikTok. They're awesome sneakers, man. Oh, okay. How much are they? 300. Oh, bloody hell. Okay, you know.
The way kids consume content, and that tells you an awful lot about the future of what I refer to as you know, traditional sales and marketing. These companies are wondering why they can't get in front of people or talk to them. It's because the models that you're using they're outdated. I hate to say it, but they are.
And if you look at these content creators, they're not saying, hey, buy my shoe. It's an awesome shoe. We got them in blue, red, and green. No, they're dancing. You're like, you know, and they're like, oh, what shoes is he wearing? I want those shoes.
I don't know if you're on TikTok now, because I need to see some
Doug's TikTok game is strong. Yeah, it's very. Well, listening to you guys talk about that, the question that comes to mind is, why are there so few like major brands or sizable companies figuring this out faster? In that it doesn't seem like rocket science to like see how the environment is changing and how the internet is upending things. Yeah,
because I think social although it's been around for you know, over a decade, it's still relatively new. And in terms of, I genuinely believe that social compared to traditional marketing is an entirely new beast. You can't take the models and mechanisms of traditional marketing and overlay it onto social. It's too nuanced. It's too, you know, you look at how communities are formed and how conversation evolves on social. It's too nuanced to apply things like funnels or any of the traditional methods that the market uses. I do genuinely believe it's an entirely new beast, and I think that companies have so long for decades and decades referred to this traditional sales and marketing model that has worked for them and still does continue to work. It's just that the mechanisms are getting less and less effective, and now it's like, well, something's changed here, but we can't quite put our finger on what it is. It's this thing, social, and they're still trying to take this round peg and stick it into this square hole that is social, and it's just not working.
And that speaks to a follow-up question I was about to ask, which is, why aren't the marketing departments, the people who are paid to do this stuff, making the adjustments? And I guess that's because they are fundamentally different skill sets and activities.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about two different budgets. So you're talking about big, massive brands that have millions and millions of dollars. The easiest thing to do is dump it into ads. When you're talking about underdogs, people who don't have those big budgets, they are on the forefront of today's marketing. So if you're talking about, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something. A traditional Chase Bank. Chase. Okay, Chase is not going to get in the social game. They don't need to. They just out-volume the entire market by dumping ads all over. Their marketing is actually buying property. And you can't bank anywhere else unless you Chase Bank. That's an example. So if you're talking about big national brands, they compete with a different older mentality, which is we're just gonna make you buy our stock because we bought the property, or we're just gonna dump millions into ads to the point where you can't see anything else but our brand. So you're talking about 1% of the entire business market that is able to do that. Yeah, right beneath the 1%, they're trying to play that game. And they get bombed out so fast. Investors are getting now. It's the people down here. They're like, we want to play with the big boys, but we're never going to have that budget. So what do we have? Well, I have TikTok. I have LinkedIn. I have WhatsApp. What can we do with that? Oh, well, okay. Let's do it here. So that I think it's not that companies don't have the means to do it. It's that they play a different game, whether it works or not. Chase Bank has been around forever, but that's the game they play. They just buy property in your mind through physical reality. The rest of us have to play the community game. And we're not playing it. I genuinely enjoy it. But I hope that, from my perspective, two different mindsets.
Yeah, I think there's a fear component as well of fear creates knowledge gaps, or knowledge gaps, sorry, create fear. And when you don't understand something like social, it's easy for companies to just dismiss it, put it in a box and go, well, it's toxic and it's horrible, and we're not going to hang out on there because it's not going to work for us, because you don't.
I don't understand that. That's what they were saying.
So you put it in a box, and I think, yeah, with companies and organizations, it's be willing to accept that, because we do this a lot. I go into companies and I start to pull down sales and marketing's church one brick at a time, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. It pushes them out of their comfort zone, because it's like all the things that you've spent an entire lifetime learning, some of those things don't work anymore, and it makes people feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I think if companies are willing to allow themselves to unlearn and learn stuff again, it would help. And there's a fear component of that. It's like, well, I know how the world works. I know how it operates. And it's like, you used to, but things have changed.
Well, I know we're running up on time for you, Nick. So I'll put this out there as a question for trying to put an exclamation point on this conversation. That, do you see, looking into your crystal balls, I guess if we're on that bell curve, is this going to behave like a bell curve where there will be mass adoption in more traditional industries and with bigger and bigger brands? I mean, is this a situation where we're at the front of a gold rush, and then the big ones are going to come, they're going to pick up their wagons and head out west? And if so, what year is that going to happen? And then I'm going to hold you to that.
You're getting me to make that. There's always a thing, I did a post about this, about Gary Vee and these predictions. Gary Vee will predict about 4 different things a day, and then in 10 years time he'll go, look, I predicted that. In terms of the bell curve, yes, I think it is. I think you're going to get some companies, some industries and some sectors where, I spoke to one the other day, I think it was a drilling company. They build drilling components, but the problem they have is attracting talent, because they're not on social, but their industry's worked a certain way. It's kind of like a dinosaur, but it just kind of plods along and does its thing. I think industries like that won't ever necessarily adopt this mindset and mentality, but that was the problem they were having. The need that they were having is like, it is attracting younger talent. It's like, well, it's because you're not on social. That's the problem. But in terms of the bell curve, I think you're probably going to see in the next, I'm going to say 5 years. So what are we now? I'd say around kind of 2028, 2030. I think we're going to start to hit the top of that curve. But then you've got things like, Web3 you added into the mix, things like AI, things like have you guys ever used Midjourney at all?
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. I get to, I sometimes wonder when I'm typing content or making videos, it's like, how long is it before I get replaced by an AI and I just dump a thought into this thing and out spit some content. I've always had this theory, and this thing blows my mind. How I think that we're meat sacks tied together with stories, and when we interact with other people, those stories overlap and they change our stories. So when we do that through our content, think of it like pollination. We put out a piece of content that affects someone else's thoughts and feelings, and it infects their content. So their content gets adjusted and adapted by it, but then they put out content, and then that affects someone else's. How this giant neural network of content is influencing and changing other people's, and it's all coming back around. Like, that stuff blows my mind.
I think, ever since Elon Musk took over Twitter, it made me realize that the future is going to be companies buying social media platforms and controlling the narrative, and or creating more social media platforms than ever before to take this social selling model and just control the narrative. They do that through advertising and data already, but Elon Musk is the first person to publicly just buy a whole social media platform, fire everyone, and control the narrative. And I think that's what's coming for platforms in the next 5, 6 years. I mean, you've got TikTok, which, it's controlled by, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but if you look at TikTok in China, it's about engineering, it's about math, it's about, smart video. If you look at the American algorithm, it's dancing, it's, all this, mindless stuff. So somebody's controlling the narrative. Even though we are making a living from these platforms and we can find pockets to thrive, I think in the future you're just going to see more platforms and more mega conglomerates just trying to funnel people, so to speak, into the many products that they offer. Similar to the Chase Bank lesson, you will not be able to bank anywhere else but Chase, because that's what they're going to be doing. And so that sounds very doomy and gloomy, but I think the human mind and creativity will always find a way to get in front of it somehow, some way. The spirit of the underdog will beat AI bot, will beat the mega climate every single time. It will be painful, but there's always people in the creative side who will find a way to break the system. And I don't think we're there yet, but Elon Musk was like, oh, I see where this is going. So just, if you don't like something, just buy it. So that's my prediction.
The flip side to that is large corporates creating their own social platforms. I do find it strange that Microsoft owns LinkedIn, and it is for me it's the most social of all social media platforms, but it's owned by a mega giant blue chip, which is the most corporate of corporates. It's bizarre. There we are.
All right, gentlemen, I really appreciate your time today. I will be including, obviously, your LinkedIn profiles in the show notes. Is there anywhere else you want to direct people to find you or what you're working on? You're both shaking your head. Nick?
Yeah, that's because we're hardcore social sellers. We know that our profiles are our landing pages, dude. That's where we convert. So.
Amen.
I had this argument with someone the other day about how websites are now defunct. Like, what do you need to go on your website for anymore? that annoyed a lot of people, but there we
are. That's most excellent. As I'm now 2 weeks into running this new company, and the website is like 90% of the way done, but I am running into this issue. This isn't the first business I've started. I'm like, who's actually coming to this website? Like, and I'm struggling with that. So to actually hear you say it that way, I really appreciate that.
I came across a post the other day. Man, I could speak to you guys for hours, but I came across a post the other day which blew my mind as well. Is that kids are kids are going on to, well, they have been for a while. It's why Google bought YouTube. But they're going on there to search in the next stuff. They're going on TikTok to search for stuff. They're not going to, so people have built entire systems, processes, and organizations around the concept of SEO. That like the SEO has become fragmented, and now it's just existing on certain platforms. So unless you're on those platforms, you don't exist. Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Well, thank you both for doing this. This has been a blast, and I feel like maybe we're gonna have to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Later.
That was a good one, Tony.
All right, and thank you for listening to another episode of In Linky Land. In the show notes, you'll find the links to Doug and Nick on LinkedIn, as well as Richard Vanderbloom, who I mentioned before, and I'll throw Sam out there as well. You can find Sam too if you want to. And I'll also mention that my book is still out there in the creative arena. It's available on Amazon. 22 5-star reviews. 22 people cannot be wrong. Can they? Can 22 people be wrong? There's a question I'll leave you with. And thank you for listening. I'll see you out there in Lincoln.